Okay, hi everybody. It is your instructor Kate Bain for Literary Criticism. I'm getting ready to post an announcement about containers. And if you've had me before, then you know that I'm a big stickler on the way that we format our titles in your submissions and your papers. Any kind of academic writing, academic paper, you've got to get the format of your titles correctly because those little details matter a lot to the reader. The reader needs to know if this is something smaller or if it's something bigger. Is it a poem versus an anthology of poems? There's a big difference with that. There are implications to the way that you title things that even go beyond that, that I won't get into. But let's kind of discuss. I'll just go through the announcement as it is on the page here and go through what everything means. So, MLA uses the term containers for the items that house a smaller source. So, our Bressler book is a container. Young Goodman Brown, the short story in our book, is a source within the container. Okay. You use quotation marks for your smaller works, and you use italics for the bigger works, for the containers. So, when I say here are some examples, I'm actually formatting them exactly the way they should be for you. So from now on, if you ever talk about a song, it should be in quotes. But if you're talking about the album, it would be in italics because the song is the source. The album is the container. The song is the smaller part. The album is the bigger part. Same thing, poem and an anthology. So whenever you're talking about a poem title, always quotes. But if you're talking about an anthology, like, the Norton Anthology of American Poetry, that's going to be in italics because it's the bigger one. It's the container. An article in a journal, right? So think about the way you do works cited entries. It's always going to be the journal title in quotes. And then you have the actual journal. So, American Journal of Eco-Criticism. That is all going to be in italics. That's the bigger one. A page on a website. So, if you've got, if you're on Poem Hunter or a Poetry Foundation, right? And there's a whole page talking about Allen Ginsberg. That page would be in quotes. But Poetry Foundation, the actual website, is bigger, right? It's the thing that houses the smaller thing. That's in italics. And a chapter title in a book. That makes sense, So if it's the chapter title is Ramifications of Transcendentalism, that's the chapter, that's in quotes. But the actual book is the Oxford Handbook of Transcendentalism. That's going to be in italics. So it doesn't matter whether this is an in-text citation or on your works cited or an entry in your works cited page, it's always going to match. It's always going to be the same. So short stories, always going to be in quotes, no matter where you go, right? It doesn't matter how you found it either. Even though we're talking about sources versus containers, a short story is a small thing, right? It appeared in something original in a container, right? If it was a short story that was first published in a magazine, then it's a source from a larger container. Nobody just publishes a short story by itself. It just doesn't exist that way. So that's a good way to remember it. Anytime you mention the larger works, the novel, the album, the movies, you italicize those. Anytime it's the smaller thing, the song or the poem or the chapter or the episode in a series, right? So if like you're watching, I don't know, Yellow Jackets, great show, and there's an episode called Doom's Coming, then you put that in the quotes, but Yellow Jackets is in italics. So with our book, if you're quoting something from Young Goodman Brown, then you're going to use quotes for the short story. And then, of course, our book will be in italics. But this is where it's going to matter on it's going to matter both on your works cited entry page and in your in-text citation. If you're quoting Young Goodman Brown, then your in-text citations should say Hawthorne. If you're quoting something that Bressler is talking about in the book, then your in-text citation will say Bressler. If you have a works cited page, you should, and you've done both of those things where you've quoted Young Goodman Brown, which you should, and then later quoted Bressler, you should have two entries on your works cited page. One is going to start with Nathaniel Hawthorne, this type of free it's not hanging indent. Let me fix that real quick. I can't ever get these things to fix on on the actual announcements in Blackboard. So just take that with a grain of salt, but should look like this. You want the reader to look for Hawthorne for the things that you're quoting Young Goodman Brown about. And then you will have another one that doesn't have this. It starts with Bressler, right? Like many of you have already used. That one would be on above this alphabetical order. Okay. Does that make sense? Hopefully. You are telling the reader when you're quoting this stuff, you're saying, hey, reader, I'm quoting Hawthorne here. So the reader is going to go, okay, I'll go look to the works cited page and go look up Hawthorne if I want more information about it. But if you say to the reader, hey, I'm quoting Bressler here, then the reader goes, okay, I'll go look at the works cited page and look for the Bressler entry so that I can learn more about it. That's why it matters. And then I put here, it's always going to be author, original publication date. If it's different from the container, right? It may not be. In this case, it certainly is because Nathaniel Hawthorne's short story came out in 1835. Bressler came out in 2011. That's why this has this the way it does. So author, for in this case, if we're quoting Hawthorne, author, Hawthorne, original publication date, 1835, title of the source, that's the one that's in quotes, remember, sources in quotes, and then your title of your container, which is in italics right here. Then you have your editor, author, whatever of the container. Then you have your publication or your publisher, your date, and all the other things that you might need there. Let's see. So yeah, so think about how you're citing. If you're citing the chapters, like the information in the chapters, that's Bressler. If there's something else in there, in our case, Hawthorne, you're citing Hawthorne for those things. Those little teeny details are ripples that turn into much bigger things if you don't get them right. So yes, so there's a link in here that I put. It's a good source for looking at how to do some of this stuff if you still don't understand even after watching this. So hopefully this helps. All right. Have a great day.